Good morning, guys. Coming to you from a different point of view on this beautiful sunny Sunday. We have some fun plans later today, but we wanted to start off the morning by getting some food because we're starving and we're slightly bit hungover from yesterday. There is a Swedish candy company in New York City called Bon Bon, and the one fun thing that they do on select Sundays is that they have a hot dog cart. We are going to Frieze, New York later today, so we definitely need some fuel beforehand. If you guys aren't familiar, Frieze, New York is one of the biggest art fairs here in the States and New York, and it highlights both emerging artists as well as some really world-renowned artists. So I'm very excited to go and see all the different booths of the different galleries from around the world and see some beautiful art. It is one of our favorite things to do, and since we live in New York City and there is such an incredible art scene here, why not take advantage of that? It's actually my first time ever going to Frieze, so I'm not so sure what to expect, which makes me even more excited to experience something for the first time. And as always, we'll bring you guys along, but let's go get some hot dogs and some cold beers first. Okay, we're doing a full-on Brooklyn day as much as possible. While we're out here in this neighborhood, there's actually a bakery that's been on my list that I've been meaning to check out for a long time. And we never really have an excuse to come here, so it's right across the street, so we're gonna go check it out. Guys, I haven't spoken to you in a couple of days, so I just wanted to chat and catch up. It is a very gloomy and very rainy day. It is pouring out here, and I feel like I've been saying that on almost every single vlog. That's just kind of been the reality of the spring weather this year around, which is exhausting and making us moody, but I hope that it's at least good for agriculture and the plants and the flowers out there. We are about to head out for dinner with friends. Shout out to Max and Haley. We love them. I'm so excited because we're finally trying Don Angie, which is a very famous, very popular Italian restaurant in the West Village. We actually tried their sister restaurant, San Sabino, which is more seafood focused, very recently, and we loved it. So my expectations are quite high, especially from what I've heard from my friends who have been. One of their most popular and famous dishes is their rolled up lasagna, which kind of takes inspiration from a cinnamon roll. And I feel like with this weather, a lasagna is going to be the absolute perfect meal for the night. This week has kind of been chaotic in the best way possible. It's been very fun. fun. And honestly, I think I'm realizing that I am more than ever just enjoying myself and enjoying my friends' company. I'm just feeling very grateful for everyone who's in my life that I love. I just feel a lot of gratitude. And I feel like for the past couple of days, I haven't really picked up my camera and filmed because I just want to be in the moment and enjoy hanging out as much as possible. But I also missed catching up with you guys. As always, I'm going to try to bring you along as much as possible and show you what we're up to in the city. So without further ado, let's go get some lasagna and delicious Italian food. Just look how gorgeous it is. Hi guys, happy Thursday, or as I like to call it, Friday Eve. I just wanted to quickly catch up with you because I know that I haven't been really good at filming this week, so I do apologize for that. The reality of it is sometimes some weeks are busy and glamorous and I have a lot to show you guys, and some other weeks are not as social or they're social in a different way. And I feel like this week, I don't know why, I just haven't really been inclined to pick up the camera and film. And even last night, honestly, I forgot to film that much at the dinner, so I couldn't show you guys much about Don Angie, which was phenomenal, by the way. The lasagna is totally worth the hype. But I think my favorite dishes were actually the chrysanthemum salad, which is sort of made in a Caesar salad style. It was so good and different. And also one of the side dishes, which was a Japanese sweet potato. It was packed with flavor. It was so delicious. Honestly, those two were probably my favorite. I'm gonna try to do better tonight. I'm actually heading out for a girls' night with Alexandra, which again, I'm so excited about because I haven't seen her one-on-one in a while. Excited to catch up with her, and we're kind of having like a chill and casual night out in town. We're gonna try to go to some wine bars, maybe cocktail bars, and just bop around. So I'm not really sure where we'll end up, but I'll take you guys along. Another thing that I've been up to this week is I started deep spring cleaning the entire apartment. I switched out my closet, and honestly, I'm finding so many things that I've just ignored that we're not using anymore, that we don't need. So I'm just feeling very energized now that I've sort of turned the house upside down. Even though it looks like chaos right now, I feel like I'm making a good progress. Another thing that I've been dealing with this week is a little bit of an ants issue. It's not necessarily an infestation because there is not that many, but I bought some peonies at the farmer's market, which are my absolute favorite flowers, and lo and behold, when they started blooming, I saw that it was covered in ants, and I think they just got all over the place. It has also been raining a lot, and I know that that attracts ants indoors, so we'll see how that situation goes. So it's kind of been a chaotic week, but we've still been trying to have as much fun as possible. Anyways, I really need a couple of drinks and some girls' time, so let's head on over to the East Village. I just finished making a focaccia dough and I put it in the fridge to proof overnight. It has already doubled and it's reached the plastic wrap on top, so I'm not really sure if that's a good sign or not. And I didn't want to show you how I make the focaccia dough because I've showed you in 2 separate videos previously. Bringing it over to a friend's place for a little gathering, so I definitely want to make sure that it's delicious. But there's another thing that I wanted to make with you guys. So if you follow me on TikTok, you probably have seen that this past winter I attempted to make my own sourdough starter, and that went very poorly. It was very cold, it wasn't humid. I was having a really hard time getting the starter to activate, and I think it was really because our home gets pretty cold in the winter, especially overnight when we're going to bed. We don't have the heaters on. So I just decided to call it quits and try again when it warms up. And now that it's warmer and humid, I feel like it could be the perfect time to start. So that's what we're doing. Anyways, all you need is a digital scale. As I've said before, any baking project, I just cannot do without a scale. I feel like it's kind of a must because baking is really a science more than an art. And then I have this WEC jar, but you can use any type of like glass container or a mason jar. And then I use whole wheat flour for the initial feed. And then I do bread flour afterwards for like the continuous feedings. I think some people have said that you can also use rye flour. And then yeah, you just want a fork or some sort of spatula to mix it with and some filtered water. All right, so this is day 1 of the sourdough starter journey. We're using our glass whack jar, and I'm going to do 60 grams of the whole wheat flour. I'm gonna do 60 grams of lukewarm filtered water. Give it a quick mix so that everything is well combined. Whole wheat flour smells so good, actually. It kind of smells like oatmeal or something. All right, so the consistency is like a thick batter and very sort of pasty. It's definitely not like a dough, and I think that's what we want. So I'm just gonna scrape the sides really well now. I'm just going to gently cover it with its lid, but kind of leave it slanted so that there is some air, because obviously we want that for fermentation. I also don't know what I'm talking about. I obviously haven't been successful at making a sourdough starter. So we'll see how this goes, but I'll see you guys in 24 hours and we'll feed her. Hopefully there will be some bubbling and some activity going on. Hi, and welcome back to my sourdough starter journey. This is day 2 and we need to feed her. I forgot to show you guys, but I put a marking tape where the sourdough starter ends just to see if it's going to rise. This one unfortunately did not rise, so I'm a little bit concerned and questioning things, but there is some bubbling over here, as you can see. So I feel like it might be active, but not really happening just yet, which is totally fine for the first few days from what I've read. So we're gonna feed it now and let it rest for another 24 hours. So the feedings are going to be 1:1:1 ratio. So sourdough to flour to water is going to be equal. And I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to pour some of the starter into a new jar and then mix everything there together, because otherwise I don't necessarily know how I'm going to measure it. All right, I am running out of dishes that I usually use for this process, but that's okay. I'm just gonna give it a quick mix. I'm using a wooden spoon. I believe you're not supposed to use metal utensils, but everything else should be fine. I'm gonna weigh 60 grams of the sourdough starter into my new container. Now I'm gonna do equal amounts of flour and water, so 60 grams of flour, and I'm using bread flour. I started with whole wheat flour, but for the feedings, we want to use bread flour. By the way, all the recipes that I've been seeing online say that you should use lukewarm filtered water, and I don't necessarily know what that exactly means. I keep my filtered water in the fridge, so what I do is I just get some of the water and then I literally microwave it for 10 seconds and that gets it to lukewarm. It's not warm, you don't want it to be steaming or anything like that, but you just don't want it to be ice cold. All right, that is lukewarm. I'm going to put 60 grams of water. All right, you guys know the drill by now. We're just gonna mix to combine everything. But honestly, I refuse to believe that this process is more complicated than it should be, so famous last words probably, but let's see. All right, this is all mixed together. I'm just going to scrape the sides. You don't necessarily need to scrape the sides, but if you want to see whether it's risen or not, I think this helps to have sort of a clear container. All right, so this is what I forgot to show you yesterday, basically how I mark where the sourdough starter ends to track the activity. So this is what I forgot to show you yesterday, but basically what I do to make sure that I track how much activity there is in the sourdough starter, I take a marking tape. I use this to label anything and everything in the kitchen, and I think it's what restaurants use as well. And then I try to aim it basically where the sourdough ends, but also honestly you can just put it wherever. You can either try to align it so that it ends where the sourdough starter sort of is, or you can just put it anywhere. Like for example, I didn't align it perfectly here, and then just hold it to light and then mark it as such. Perfect. You know the drill. We're gonna loosely cover this and let it rest for 24 hours and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And when I mean loosely cover, I basically just put a paper towel on top and then I put a rubber band around it. There's obviously still going to be air that gets into the container, which is what you want, I believe. Hey guys, happy Sunday. It is day 3 of the sourdough starter journey and I'm coming to you with some really good news because the sourdough starter has probably more than doubled, if I'm being honest. It smells very yeasty, fermented. You kind of get like that alcohol smell almost, but it's not very pungent or strong and it doesn't smell that funky. So I feel like that's a good sign and it means that it is activating and doing its thing. And the fact that there's so many bubbles in the surface just makes me so happy. And as you can see, this is where I marked that it was ending and it's risen this much. So that is definitely about double, if not more. So we're gonna do the same thing as we did yesterday. I'm again using my trusty digital scale. I'm going to transfer 60 grams of the starter into a new and clean jar, and then I'm going to do 60 grams of bread flour and 60 grams of lukewarm water, giving it a quick mix. I've also been reading some recipes online that tell me to half the sourdough starter, so that I feel like it just becomes a more complicated measurement because when the sourdough starter rises, you don't necessarily end up with the same amount that you had when you started. So having to halve the sourdough starter and calculating it based on the weight of the container that you're using, I feel like it's just a little bit too complicated. So I'm just gonna keep doing the 1:1:1 ratio with the amount that I started, which is 60 grams of each. Double paper towel, just because this jar is a little bit bigger. And I'm just gonna put a rubber band around it. And that is day 3 feeding done. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hey guys, it's day 4 of my sourdough starter journey. And today, unfortunately, it hasn't risen, as you can see. I'm seeing a few bubbles and a little bit of crust on top, which I think indicates that the sourdough starter is hungry. So I'm just gonna feed it and then see what happens. But it does smell very yeasty, so I feel like good things are happening, but we will see. I'm gonna give this a little stir. As you can see, it's very sticky and bubbly. So we're going to transfer about 60 grams of the starter into my new glass. It's really quite hard to measure the sourdough starter just because it's so sticky. You kind of don't know until you've poured enough, and then sometimes it's too much. That is exactly 60. 60 grams of bread flour. At this point, you guys know the drill. And 60 grams of lukewarm water. And we're gonna give it a quick mix to combine everything. I don't know, I feel like maybe the sourdough starter is liking the glasses more than the wek jar. I'm not sure if the wek jar is maybe too white for it, so maybe I'll get a smaller jar. I don't really know if that matters, but we'll see how it's going to react to this feeding and this rising in the glass versus the jar. It is totally fine for it to not double for the first few days though, but the fact that it doubled yesterday, I was kind of hopeful that we were off to a good start, but we'll see. All right, so this is the consistency that we have. Kind of a thick, sticky batter. You guys know the drill. I'm just going to scrape the sides and then mark it and then let it rest until tomorrow. All right, our day 4 feeding of the sourdough starter is done. We'll see what she does tomorrow and we'll take it from there. But I think I'm going to end this week's vlog here. Thank you guys so much for watching and for spending this week with me. I feel like this was a good mix of a very realistic week in my life where we do a few social things, we try to take it easy on the weekends, and then I take on some crazy kitchen projects as I always do. Thank you especially for joining me on the sourdough starter journey. It is a little bit nerve-wracking since last time it didn't work out, and I'm actually leaving for a trip in a week. So I'm not sure why I decided to start this right now, but hopefully this will be going by then so that I can actually put it in the fridge, and then when I come back from the trip I can feed it. But I'll keep you guys posted on how the sourdough starter is going. And instead of showing you the day-to-day, which is basically the same thing every single day, I will probably just show you once it's active, and we can take it from there and hopefully bake a nice sourdough loaf. Love you guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you're having a lovely week wherever you are.